So, you want to maximize your efficiency in farming in 7 Days to Die? Well, you've come to the right place. We'll cover everything you need to know to farm as efficiently as possible in 7 Days to Die. Let's jump in. The first thing you'll need to do to farm is get your hands on farm plots. Farm plots are 1 by 1 by 1 blocks that allow you to plant seeds. You place the block down, put the seed in your hand and right click to plant it. You'll need access to light and space above the farm plot block, of course, to be able to plant the seed. Aside from a few special crops, this is the only way to farm crops. There is no way to till the soil or anything in 7 Days to Die anymore. The plots are crafted by default with 4 wood, 10 rotten flesh, 25 nitrate powder and 100 clay. So not a huge barrier to entry, but if you want a lot of plots, that will become quite expensive quite quickly. So you'll want to reduce that, which we'll cover in a second. An alternative strategy though, if you don't have the resources, is to just find a POI which has existing farm plots. Believe it or not, these can be planted on with any seeds just fine. However, you can't pick them up and move the plots the same way you would with farm plots, which is done with a shovel, just hitting them basically. The best POI I would say for farm plots early on is the tier 1 cobweb cottage. It's a very common tier 1 POI with 45 free farm plots in the back. Just make sure you place a land claim block or a bedroll to stop the quest browser from sending you back here so you can use it for farming. But there's a couple of other good options as well. The cartel house has roughly the same amount of plots as the cobweb cottage, though it's a harder POI to clear on day 1, though I wouldn't say significantly. And arguably, the cartel house is a better house overall to live in. The Senor Drogas house actually has the most plots I've found so far, at over 50, but again, it's a less common POI, and once again, it is a much harder clear than the previous two. If you want to start farming, definitely consider starting off in one of these POIs to skip having to gather up all those farm plots. If you do still need some more farm plots though and want to craft them, let's move on to the next tip. Living off the land. Living off the land is a general perk which increases your farming yields and reduces farm plot costs. First 2 ranks will reduce the farm plot cost by 50%, so it's really quite useful for large scale farm plot crafting. But even if not, you should pretty much always be taking living off the land anyway if you want to farm, because it's pretty much not sustainable without it. Main effects of the perk are giving triple crop yields and a 50% chance to gain an extra crop. So let's talk about crop yields and how farming works. When you harvest a wild crop in 7 Days to Die, you'll get 1 of the plant. This sucks because it costs 5 crops to make a seed, meaning to plant 1 crop, you need to break 5. This is slightly better with farmed crops because you'll get twice as many per plant and you'll get a 50% chance to get a seed. And it's worth noting that both wild and farmed crops are affected by the living off the land perk. However, in order to become sustainable or profitable with your farming, you will need that living off the land perk. Otherwise, you'll waste all or most, or even in some cases, you won't even have enough crops to replant all your farm plots. So use wild crops to get your farm started and then rely on your farms for the double yield, allowing up to 7 crops per plant, which is enough to replant your seed 100% of the time, even if you never get a seed back, and still come out with a few spare crops. In addition, though, you should look into farming armor. Farming boots at level 6 will give you an additional 20% chance to harvest a seed when harvesting planted crops, not wild crops though. This is a significant increase to the amount of crops you'll get actually, because every seed you don't have to craft is 5 crops saved. Then the farming outfit adds a 100% chance to harvest an additional crop. This actually does apply to wild crops, so it can be useful there. This 100% chance to get an extra crop is added at the end of your farming calculation, so it's not like it'll be added before living off the land and cause a massive balloon in your crop harvest. It just takes your max yield from 7 to 8. Then there's the farming hat, which gives you a 20% higher chance to find seeds in loot. This is really nice if you really want to maximize harvest, but that is a lot of investment for a hat that you basically have to wear at all times, or at least keep on you at all times without looting. The farming gloves and the completion effect of the farming outfit don't do anything for farming themselves, so you don't have to worry about them if you're farming. So with all that in mind, you can now get your farm plots up and plant your seeds and get maximum yields from them. Let's talk about the crops you have available to you and how they work. First of all but one crop must be placed on the farm plot blocks. The exception is mushrooms, which you can place just about anywhere. Once you plant your seeds, you have to wait 2 in-game days for the crop to grow. If you destroy the plant before it's grown, you'll get the seed back, but obviously you'll have to stop that timer and have to replant it for 2 days again. Trees, by the way, don't require farm plot blocks to plant. I'm not sure if we want to count this as farming, but for the sake of clarity, it won't hurt. Trees can be planted on any terrain, but will only fully grow on non-desert terrain. They have several growth stages and can be harvested as early as you would like, but the maximum yield will come from fully grown trees at 1200 health. Try to wait for those before harvesting them. Which leads me into the normal plants that you're going to farm. All but one kind of seed is unlocked by the Southern Farming Skill Magazine. Unlike most skill magazines, it only has 20 ranks, so it's often much quicker to complete. You can boost your odds of finding this book further by investing in the Living Off the Land perk, which is yet another reason to invest in it if you're going to do any farming. And the books are most often found in food-related containers. The first seed you unlock is cotton, which is a versatile crafting ingredient. You can find a lot of cotton to start your farms if you wish to farm it in the forest biome. At level 4, you unlock goldenrod and chrysanthemum, which are used in some drinks, and chrysanthemum is even used in paint. These can both also be found in large numbers in the forest biome. In fact, these 3 crops are so frequent that you should probably not even waste time farming them. Just go out and harvest up a few wild fields and you'll probably have more than you know what to do with. At level 6, you'll unlock coffee. Now, coffee is very rarely found growing in some farming POIs, but of course, it's offset by the fact that you can turn all excess coffee you find in coffee machines into seeds if you would like. This one is more worthwhile for farming, as the plant is definitely less common overall, although there's arguably plenty of coffee to be looted, so maybe it's just not worth it depending on how you play. At level 8, you unlock yucca, and this is used in some useful foods and drinks, but again, it's very common in the desert, so it's another one I would advise against really wasting your farm plots on. At level 10, you unlock aloe, which is used in aloe cream, which is then used to make first aid bandages. This one is very useful, but much like yucca, you can find huge amounts of this in the desert, so you only really need to farm it if you're planning on making 1 billion first aid bandages, or you don't have access to a desert, or for some reason you have genuinely picked your desert completely clean of these crops, which would take an unreal amount of time. At level 12, you unlock blueberries, which are used in some food and drink items. This one is very commonly found growing wild in the snow biome, so again, I really wouldn't bother farming it unless you're terrified of the wildlife in the snow biome. At level 12, you also unlock hops, and this is the first big contender I think for a crop you should probably always farm. Hops are used in beer, and beer is an excellent stamina restoring item for melee builds or times for when you need to run away. Additionally, it's a must-have for brawling builds due to the triple damage bonus it gives at brawling builds. Additionally, beer is used in most powerful consumables in the late game, like first aid kits, fort bites, steroids, and recog. Combined with the relative rarity of the hops plant in the wild, you should definitely consider adding hops to your farm if you want to use beer to its full effect. At level 14, you'll unlock pumpkin seeds. Pumpkins are used to make jack-o'-lanterns and pumpkin-based foods, the most useful of which is probably the pumpkin cheesecake, which gives you a 5% discount at the trader. This is a decent one to farm as it's quite rare in the world, but at the same time, the food items aren't as powerful as a lot of other ones. So again, it'll highly depend on your preferences here, especially if you plan on building 100 billion jack-o'-lanterns for some reason, you will want to farm pumpkins. At level 16, you finally unlock mushrooms. Mushrooms are a no-brainer. They don't require a farm plot, so there's genuinely just no reason to not grow them pretty much all the time, which is advice I will never ever follow in my own gameplay. These are used in antibiotics, biome consumables, awesome sauce which gives you a discount, and 3 very powerful food items. There's no reason not to grow them, except for the fact that I'm stubborn and stupid. At level 18, you unlock corn. Corn is used in a huge amount of foods directly as corn, but you can also turn it into cornmeal, which is used in a whole other host of valuable foods and even medical items. Corn is an obvious choice for any farm as it's used in damn near every late game food recipe. Then at the final level of farming you get potatoes. Potatoes are also used in most of the same recipes as corn is and should pretty much always be paired with it if you're growing it, unless you specifically are only going to make steak and potato meals which don't require corn. The last unlockable crop, and arguably the most powerful, is supercorn. Supercorn is a valuable late game crop used in crafting Fallout Flush, glue, the Grandpa's drinks, which are pretty powerful if you can be bothered to craft them. But the main use of supercorn is the selling price. A stack of 125 sells for a base of 5,000, and that can be boosted up significantly, allowing you to really abuse farming for money. But how do you unlock it? Well, on the one hand, you don't have to deal with the stupid skill magazines, but on the other hand, it can be difficult to get the exact location you need to be near you, so theoretically you could get it on day one if you just knew where this location was in your world. I think you can also occasionally get the schematic in random loot and as trader rewards, but the guaranteed route is more powerful, I would say, and that is the Bob's, Boar's, and Carl's Corn POI. If you come to the front of the POI, which is where these two signs are, and then walk up to the two front doors and break the double door on the right side here, then walk in and look to your right again, you'll find a tube. And inside there, you'll find a chest, and inside the chest, you will find 5 supercorn seeds and 1 supercorn seeds schematic. You will have to either break 3,250 health to get to it, or disable the flame trap above by pressing the buttons. I think green then yellow always turns it off. I might be wrong. Feel free to do the rest of this POI, by the way. There's a lot of meat, bones, rotten flesh, supercorn to be had in here. It's a very useful POI. Just be very, very well armed for what lives in the caves underneath the house if you intend to go there. And no, it's not zombies. If you found this video helpful, why not check out the video popping up on screen right now. Thank you so much for watching, and as usual, thank you to my members and patrons for their support. I'll see you in the next video.